Yeah, welcome back to a new series called The Most Powerful Black Man of the Last 500 Years, where we discuss life during the reign of King Henri Christophe, Commander-in-Chief of Northern Haiti from 1802 to 1820 until his death. Now, make sure you stay up to date, go back, watch part 1 through 6 so everything makes sense. Now, I had a subscriber privately message me to go into detail about when the French army originally invaded in 1802. Napoleon sent out like 80,000 soldiers and all those warships, and I had said Christophe was the first one to make contact with the French army because they landed in the port city that he was controlling and he was commanding. So I had someone ask me, go into detail, what was that story like? How did that encounter go down? So before we even get back into the government letters, the government documents, we are going to go back in time. 1802, French pulling up, Napoleon sending the army, Napoleon sending the shooters. What happened on that famous day? Let's go back into it. With the preliminaries of the treaty settled on October 1st, 1801, Napoleon, who had watched with bitter resentment the rise of Toussaint Louverture and his open flouting of orders, was at last free to deal with the colony, and he set about the conquest of the island with his usual thoroughness. He assembled 20,000 veterans of the European wars, placed them under the command of his brother-in-law, General Charles Leclerc, and he dispatched them along with a huge armada to the island of Hispaniola. His orders were explicit and drastic. The campaign was to be divided in 3 phases. Leclerc was the first to occupy the coastal towns. During this period, Toussaint and the black generals were to be flattered, loaded with honors, and allowed to keep their rank, provided they submitted voluntarily to the French army. In the second period, Leclerc was to smash all organized resistance on the island. If after 15 days from the arrival of the French, Toussaint and the Negro generals had not surrendered, they were to be proclaimed traitors, and when captured, summarily shot and executed. During the third period, any remaining rebel bands in the mountains were to be hunted down, and with the island wholly subdued, the Negroes were to be put back to slavery. During this period too, those Negro leaders who had voluntarily submitted were to be sent with as little commotion as possible to France. In the meantime, all officers above the rank of captain were also to be deported. Napoleon wanted no half measures, and to see that his orders were performed, he equipped the largest and most costly expedition sent out to the New World in history during that time. So basically, Napoleon sent out the largest military expedition in the history of humanity during that time in 1802, and he lost. Let's get back into it. General Toussaint also had made his plans. Resistance was everywhere to be offered. Anticipating the very invasion was now underway, he had bought enormous quantities of muskets and war material in the United States, and 20,000 soldiers stood armed and ready. Many of the agricultural laborers too had been armed and awaiting only a signal to become guerrilla fighters. Under his command, 3 powerful generals divided defense of the island. In the south and west provinces, Dessalines held full charge. In Spanish Santo Domingo, the mulatto Clairvaux, assisted by Paul Louverture, had 4,000 soldiers armed and ready. And in the North Province, Henri Christophe prepared for the invasion at Cap Français. So you got to understand, right? Henri Christophe, he like 34, 35 years old around this time. He the young boy. Toussaint, he's like 60 years old, right? Dessalines, he close to his 40s, if not already in his 40s, right? Christophe in his early to mid 20s, and they sent him to be the one that makes first contact with the French army. Now, as you already know, young boy Christophe, ready for war, ready for whatever. You know what I mean? It don't even matter. It's a reason why Toussaint elected him to be the one to receive the army. Because even though he might be the youngest in the crowd during that time, listen, he ready for whatever, bro. He got that spirit in him. He got that, you know what I mean? Obviously, General Toussaint saw something in him to where he would be the one to receive the French army above all the other generals and soldiers who may even be older than him. So let's get back into it. Toussaint gave orders to his generals to burn down the towns, destroy the countryside, so that the invaders would only find ruin and ashes and retreat to the mountains. There were, however, several weaknesses in Toussaint's position. Although he had showered every privilege on the French whites, whom he had freed from foreign control, they were not really loyal to him and welcomed an expedition from France. The mulattoes too awaited an opportunity to renounce the authority of a Negro. Finally, his plans of defense distributed his troops at too many points, and hence there was no single force strong enough to repel a determined assault. When, on January 29th, 1802, the French Armada was sighted off Cap Samana on the eastern coast of the island, Toussaint was hastily summoned. Gazing on the vast flotilla, he was filled with melancholy forebodings. "We must die," he said. "All of France has come to the colony." But he did not swerve from the path he had chosen. A few days later, on February 3rd, 1802, General Charles Leclerc appeared with half his fleet in the harbor of Cap Français and at once demanded permission to land. But Christophe refused on the plea, and he must first have the acquiescence of Toussaint. The messages between Leclerc and Christophe reveal the high-handed disdain of the one and the steadfast courage and dignity of the other. I learned with indignation, Citizen General, first wrote Leclerc, that you refuse to receive the French squadron and the French army, and I command, under the pretext that you have received no orders from the Governor General. France has concluded a peace with England, and its government sends to Santo Domingo forces capable of subduing the rebels, and least, if any are to be found at Santo Domingo. As to you, General, I confess it will grieve me to account you among them. I give you notice that if you have not in the course of this day surrendered the fort and Bel Air, and with all batteries on the coast, tomorrow at daybreak, 15,000 troops shall be disembarked. 4,000 men are at this moment landing at Fort Liberté, 8,000 more at Fort Républicain. Hereforth, you will receive any proclamation which expresses the intentions of the French governor. But recollect, whatever individual esteem your conduct in the colony may have inspired me with, I hold you responsible for what may happen. Christophe's answer is remarkably forthright. Your aide-de-camp, General, has delivered to me your letter of this day. I have an honor to inform you that I cannot deliver up the forts and posts confided to my command without direct orders from my Governor General, Toussaint Louverture, my immediate chief, for whom I hold the powers which I am invested. I am fully persuaded that I have to do with Frenchmen, and that you are the chief of the armament called the expedition. But I wait the orders of my governor, to whom I am dispatched one of my aides-de-camps, to notify him of your arrival and that of the French army, and cannot permit you to land until I have received his answer. If you put in force your threats of hostility, I shall make the resistance which becomes the general officer, and should the chance of war be yours, you shall not enter the cap, and that it will be reduced to ashes. Even in your ruins, I will renew the combat. You say that the French government has sent to Santo Domingo forces capable of defeating the rebels. If any such be found, it is your coming and the hostile intentions you manifest that alone could create them among a peaceable people. In perfect submission to France, the very mention of rebellion is an argument for our resistance. As to the troops, which you say are this moment landing, I consider them as so many pieces of cards which the least breath of wind will dissipate. How can you hold me responsible for the event? You are not my chief. I know you not, and can therefore make no account of you till you are recognized by Governor Toussaint. For the loss of your esteem, General, I assure you that I desire not to earn it at the price that you set upon it. Since to purchase it, I must be guilty of breaching my duty. So basically, the French general and the French armada came through and demanded Christophe permission to land in the harbor. Christophe was like, basically, bro, I don't know you, dog. I don't know you. I got to talk to my chief first, all right? And my chief said he don't know you either. So until I get word from my OG, my old head, I'll let you know. But if you want to go to war, we can go to war. We can do whatever. If you step one foot into the harbor, I'm burning it down. I'm burning everything down. And you talking about you got troops landing on the eastern part of the island? That's nothing, bro. We got troops already waiting for you over there. Bro, it ain't nothing. Make one move and see what happened, bro. Make one move and see what happened. But stay right here. I'm going to go talk to Toussaint real quick. I'm going to go call Toussaint and we'll let you know what he says, all right? You got to understand. Christophe, I repeat, is in his early to mid 30s, bro. He's not he's a young boy, all right? He's a young dude. You know what I'm saying? He's a young dude looking at this whole fleet, this French armada, and he's like, bro, I don't know you, dog. I don't know you. You talking about you trying to land in the harbor? I don't know you, my dog. I don't know you. You're not my chief, bro. You're not my chief. Let's get back into it. Infuriated at such defiance, General Leclerc landed his troops on February 5th, 1802. But as he had been warned, he found the city reduced to ashes. Tradition has it that Christophe, as an example to his men, first set a flaming torch to his own luxuriously furnished house, thereby destroying all his worldly possessions. Then, taking a considerable number of whites with him as hostages, he fled with his army to the mountains. The French landings were uniformly successful. Spanish Santo Domingo surrendered on February 2nd and thenceforth recognized the sovereignty of France. Port-au-Prince was captured on February 5th. 2 days later, the southern province submitted to French control. Everywhere the forces of Toussaint were relaying before the blows of Leclerc, but strong centers of resistance remained. Some of the Negro leaders had already gone over to the French, but Toussaint had no thought of surrendering. Accordingly, on February 17th, the French declared Toussaint and Christophe to be outlaws. But yeah, man, that's what happened when the French came through in 1802. You know, as we know, the French Armada was unsuccessful and independence was declared about 2 years later. But let's get back into these government letters, man. I know that's why you're here. I know that's why we here. So let's get back into it. The main event. Let's go. Thomas Clarkson to King Henri, dated October 30th, 1818. Mr. Thompson, having offered to take charge of any packet which I might have for your majesty, I trust him with this letter and also another which I had written to you in late August, which has laid there since and for want for a proper conveyance to Haiti. Understanding some time ago that several of the European kings would meet in France in the month of September to adjust the affairs of Europe and its dependencies, I determined to go there in person to avail myself of my personal knowledge to the Emperor of Russia and of the Duke of Wellington and Lord Castlereagh, the English ambassadors there, in order that I might procure, if possible, from the Congress some resolution which should give the finishing blow to the slave trade. Your Majesty knows already that the Spaniards have bound themselves by treaty to give up the slave trade entirely and forever after May 1820, and then after this period no European nation can be legally engaged in it but the Portuguese, whose time for continuing it will expire in 1823. I wish, therefore, to persuade the Emperor of Russia and our own ambassadors to try to obtain from Congress two resolutions. First, that the Portuguese should be obliged to give up the slave trade at the same time as the Spaniards in 1820. And secondly, that if any persons of any nation should be found carrying on this bloody traffic after May 1820, they should be taken and punished as pirates. I had a long and interesting interview with the Emperor of Russia. His Imperial Majesty told me in the most unequivocal manner that he approved of both my measures and that he would support in Congress to the utmost of his power. When I was in France, I was not unmindful of your Majesty. I was very earnest with the Duke of Wellington to inform me whether the French still entertained any design of invading Haiti. He said he believed that they had given up the intention. For having given up the slave trade, they had now no motive for an invasion. It would be but of little advantage to them to possess Haiti unless they could stock it with slaves. He assured me that the great families in France who had formerly an interest in Haiti and who had been constantly urging the king and his ministers to invade it under the hope of regaining their estates there were now quiet. Finding to their disappointment that the law for the abolition of the slave trade has been passed, they had now given up their estates as lost forever, and therefore they no longer took a part against Haiti. He was informed, however, that the French government intended to try to make a commercial treaty with General Jean-Pierre Boyer, the successor of Pétion, as the only thing they have ever expected to gain from Haiti. This throws light upon a paragraph which I read about a fortnight ago in a French paper, that General Boyer had made a proposal to the French government to pay an annual tribute to France and to give her all his commerce, provided France would acknowledge him and the independence of his territory. Now hold up. 1818, 2 years before the death of Christophe, around 1818, General Pétion had died. He died like a terrible death. I heard, he was like having diarrhea for like 2 weeks straight. He just died sick, just really bad, right? So his successor, his protege, President Jean-Pierre Boyer, came to power, and as early as 1818 was in negotiations with the French to pay an annual tribute and give up all Haitian commerce just to be acknowledged by his white daddy. As we know, he was a mulatto, son of a white father, just to be acknowledged by his father and his uncles and his granddaddy. He was willing to give up the whole country and to pay a tribute every year forever to France. So, listen, it is what it is, man. This is why if a chick tell me, she got a history dealing with white boys, like, I can't be with you, baby. You know what I'm saying? I can't be with you, baby. I got historical grudges that I'm carrying, I'm playing, but I'm not really playing though, but I'm playing. But yeah, man, as early as 1818, General Jean-Pierre Boyer was in negotiations with the French government to pay an annual tribute. And as we know, 2 years later, Christophe died. General Jean-Pierre Boyer took over the entire Haitian territory, took over the Spanish part of the island, and he ended up agreeing to pay that quote-unquote tribute, which we paid for over 100 years, up until the 1940s, I believe, with interest. That tribute to the former slaveholders, as we know, his white daddies, his cousins, his uncles, his family members up in France. He was willing to pay them an annual tribute. It is what it is. Christophe was not willing to pay them. Obviously, Christophe had no genetic or family connections to France. Christophe was ready for war. So it is what it is, man. Rest in peace to the king. And yeah, let's get back into it. Now, I do not believe the account as it stands in a French newspaper for to pay an annual tribute is irreconcilable with independence, but I do believe that the French will try, or that they have already tried, to gain the trade of General Boyer's part of Haiti, and that they would be very willing to acknowledge his independence in return. I hope, however, that General Boyer will have sense enough to reject such a proposition. It would do him no good. It would bring you into trouble. It might ultimately be calamitous to both. So Thomas Clarkson, even the white man knows, like, bro, you can't pay a tribute to France. That's not independence, bro. And if General Boyer is allowing the French to do business on his part of the island, then that's putting them at your gates. You know what I'm saying? So the white boy, like Christophe, bro, you gotta handle your boy down south. You gotta handle the mulattoes down south, bro. They down there talking to France, talking about they're gonna pay a tribute to France, about to come let France come through, resettle on the island, bro. He about to put the whole island in danger. You gotta go handle your business, bro. Let's get back into it. I return now to the Emperor of Russia. I should have thought my journey to France very incomplete unless I had endeavored to interest him in your Majesty's welfare also, and to do this with the more effect I took the liberty of showing him confidentially one of your letters, which I had taken with me from England for that purpose. This letter produced upon his Imperial Majesty the effect I had anticipated. He expressed his obligations for me for having shown him it, for he confessed it had given him new ideas both in respect to Haiti and to your government. He had been taught by the French and the German newspapers that Haiti was inhabited by a people little better than savages. He now saw them in a different light. The letter which I had shown him was a letter of genius and talent. It contained wise, virtuous, and liberal sentiments. It would have done honor to the most civilized cabinets of Europe. To see, said his Imperial Majesty, a person rising up in the midst of slavery and founding a free empire was of itself a surprising thing. But to see him in the midst of ignorance and darkness, founding it on the pillars of education, was more surprising and delightful. So yeah, Thomas Clarkson, he showed one of Christophe's letters to the Emperor of Russia, and the Emperor of Russia was like, bro, I was in the French media, I was reading the French newspapers, I thought it was a bunch of savages and monkeys on that island, bro. You mean to tell me they know how to read and write? Wow. That's crazy, bro. You know what I'm saying? You see how they doing, Christophe, in the French media, in the European media? You know what I'm saying? Man, it is what it is, man. I'm telling you, Christophe had to navigate a crazy world, which is why I had said in one of my previous videos, he had a right to be angry. Anyways, let's get back into it. He hoped he should see the spectacle of a new empire rivaling the whites in all that was great and good. I replied that I was sure you would do great things for Haiti, but that you were crippled in your exertions by fear of a French invasion. The Emperor said it was undoubtedly true when the French expected a renewal of the slave trade for 5 years that they had in contemplation a diabolical attempt against Haiti. But since the 5 years had been given up, he had heard nothing of an expedition against that country, and he thought he should have heard something of it if it had been seriously intended. He hoped and believed that nothing of this sort was in contemplation. I then told the Emperor what your Majesty had been doing. You had in contemplation to found a university. You had sent for professors of the languages, for ministers of the gospel, and schoolmasters from England. And at this moment, you had made such good use of the latter that the means of education were becoming general throughout your part of the kingdom. I then told the Emperor that you had many thousands of men in arms, the greater part of which you had planned to disband, and that you wished to put them on the farms and thus make them useful in promoting agriculture and population. But that you dared not realize this due to a fear of a French invasion. I earnestly entreated him, if ever an expedition should be seriously intended by the French against Haiti, to use his high influence with the King of France to prevent it. The Emperor said that he had just received a letter from Mr. Wilberforce on the same subject. He would not lose sight of it. Your good efforts must not be allowed to be undone. He would speak to Lord Castlereagh and see what could be done in the affair. In my letter on August, I suggested to your Majesty that you might prevent the introduction of slaves into the Spanish part of the island by cruising about and seizing all Portuguese slave ships immediately and all Spanish slave ships after May 1820. Should such ships be found on the shores of your island for such a purpose, this I suggested to you rather to think upon than to act upon, and indeed it would be wise to suspend all provisions of this sort till we hear what the Congress have done. I am happy also to inform you that there is a growing spirit of rational liberty among the French people, which cannot but be favorable to you. The greatest enemies you had in France were the ultra-royalists, but it is remarkable that in the latest elections, not one of these has returned to the lower chamber, but instead of them, several friends to liberty, and also friends to you and to the independence of Haiti. Among these is my much esteemed friend, General Lafayette. Should the French minister ever have in contemplation to invade Haiti, this estimable man with many others will lift up their voices in the Senate against him. The greater number there are of liberal men in the lower chamber of the Senate of France, the more secure will your Majesty be from French invasion. I cannot close this letter without recommending to your Majesty to consider whether a union with General Jean-Pierre Boyer is practicable. You best know what success to your proclamation has had among the Haitians on this part of the island. If they are not likely to come over to you, surely concord is better than discord. It is impossible to foresee human events. It is possible, however, that your union might be very useful against any attack from the Spanish side of the island, and certainly it will be very useful against an attack on the part of the French. What I most fear is that if you should keep General Boyer in a state of fear or alarm respecting your own intentions, you will oblige him to have recourse to France for protection against you, though probably much against his will. In this case, he will offer France his trade, but he will call upon her in return not only to acknowledge him, but to guarantee his independence. And if France should guarantee his independence, and your Majesty should afterwards see occasion to fight against him, he will call in the French army for assistance, and you will then see French armies finding a safe and easy passages through his territory and into yours. I remain my best wishes, your Majesty's friend, Thomas Clarkson. Man, hold up, man. That boy Thomas be dropping gems on Christophe, bro. Like, bro, you better go make peace with General Boyer in the South, because listen, he might have to go to the French just to get protection against you. If you might get too rich and powerful, he might have to go run to the, to the enemy just to be safe against you. And then the enemy gonna have a safe passage right into your territory and right to the palace gates, bro. Man, let's get back into it. Next letter, dated February 20th, 1819, Thomas Clarkson to King Henry. Having just received a letter from a friend of mine in the United States of America, I am desirous of making you acquainted with its contents. It appears from that letter that there is a great number of free people of color settled in different parts of the United States. I believe their number may amount to about 250,000. They live chiefly by their industry, and many of them have acquired property. There has been a general wish among the citizens of the United States that they should be sent to Africa, the land of their ancestors, to live there as independent people, either under the protection of the American government or under a guarantee of the different powers of Europe, and that they shall not be molested there. But of late, this opinion has changed, and there seems to be now a desire that they should be sent to Haiti, provided they should wish to immigrate there, and provided that Your Majesty and General Jean-Pierre Boyer would have no objection against sending them there. Many meetings have been held by the Friends of the Abolition in the United States and are still to be held there to take into consideration this important subject. I have thought it proper, therefore, to advise Your Majesty of these circumstances, and in case any application should be made by you for this purpose, you may be put upon your guard. There can be no doubt that such an immigration, if it consisted of persons of character, would very much add to your population and, of course, to the security of your dominions. And there is another point of view in which it might be far more advantageous. If the American government were to apply to you on this subject, you might stipulate to receive them, provided the American government would purchase the Spanish part of the island and cede it to you, but upon no other terms. I am told that the Spanish ambassador to the United States is of opinion that his own government would dispose of this part of the island for this very purpose. Spain would probably sell it to America, though she would not sell it to Your Majesty. Should such an event take place, it would take away one great cause of uneasiness from you. You would then have no fear of France, either by a direct invasion of Haiti or by the settlement of Frenchmen on the Spanish part of the island. I do not know whether this project of taking the free people of color to Haiti will ever come to anything, but yet I thought it proper to let you know. I felt myself obliged to Your Majesty for desiring the Count de Limonade to inform me of the death of Prince Noel, because I have always taken interest in what may concern you. I am with great respect and regard, Your Majesty's friend, Thomas Clarkson. And then in the letter, I guess Thomas Clarkson forgot to write something, so at the bottom, he added a little bit more. Let's get back into it. Since writing the above, I have had some conversations with Mr. Wilberforce, who is of the opinion that you should not refuse to receive the free people of color from the United States, provided the government of the United States would buy the Spanish part of the island for that purpose. I am very glad to find that Mr. Prince Saunders has been impressing the citizens of North America with the most favorable idea of Your Majesty's character, both at Boston, New York, Philadelphia, and other parts, what has caused them to turn their attention towards you. So yeah, man, Christophe's name was buzzing, you know what I mean? Up in New York, up in Boston, up in Philly, basically places where, a lot of us be at, in present day today. So listen, back in them days, people knew about Christophe, man. You couldn't not know about Christophe. At the end of the day, they might have buried him out the history books, but listen, the people of that day, the black people of that day, they knew. Yeah, it was a black king. He had his major palace. He was a multi-billionaire. He had a big fortress on top of a mountain. He had his wife always dripping and shining. Yeah, everybody knew about Christophe back in them days, man. Yeah, I guarantee we time travel back in them days. Yeah, Christophe was that dude, man. Christophe was that guy. You know what I'm saying? Let's get back into it. King Henri to Thomas Clarkson at the palace, March 20th, 1819. The 16th year of our independence. Worthy and respected friend, my confidence in your friendship and great knowledge leads me to send you a copy of a letter written by the French General de Vincent to Count de Limonade, my minister and Secretary of State. There is also a copy of the reply which was made to de Vincent. When you read these two massives, I shall be greatly obliged if you will express yourself very frankly and tell me what you think of the matter. You will see that the French government is looking for the means of sounding us out. Before I undertake any negotiations, I am anxious to hear your advice and to profit by your wisdom. I shall be deeply grateful if you will write to me in your usual plain-spoken way, telling me what course I shall follow in the case the French government proposes the signing of a treaty with us. You have long known my thoughts concerning the conditions under which Haiti would be willing to deal with France. My ideas were made public in my declaration on November 20th, 1816. That is why I told you in a confidential letter that my dearest wish was to have England recognize the independence of Haiti before we listen to any proposal put forth by the French government. Since you, my friend, are fully acquainted with the politics of all these capitals which are interested in Haiti and know what is happening just now throughout Europe, your advice will be of unusual value to me under these circumstances. I shall await your answer with considerable impatience, with sentiments of esteem, friendship, and deep regard. Henry. Next letter, King Henri to Thomas Clarkson, dated March 20th, 1818. My worthy and respected friend, I received with great satisfaction from the hand of Mr. Thompson your letters on the 28th of August and the 20th of November of the past year. I have read them with lively interest, and I know not to express to you all the gratitude I feel for the outstanding services which you never cease to render to the cause of the Africans and the Haitians. In your communication on the 28th, you discussed the Spanish part of Haiti. Since I last wrote, nothing new has happened there, and you may be sure, my friend, that if anything worthy of my attention should occur, I shall be guided by your wise advice, and then, under all circumstances, I shall conduct myself with the highest dignity and prudence. Though it is only with the greatest grief that I can bear to see Spanish vessels engaged in the slave trade within sight of my coast. It is not intention to fit out ships of war against them, because I should never wish to give our enemies any excuse for molesting us. You are aware that they watch our every action, and nothing should make them happier than to find some way of discrediting us in the eyes of the whole world. So Christophe, he basically like, man, I'm waking up every damn morning, you know what I'm saying? I'm smoking my cigar, you know what I'm saying? I'm drinking my rum, and every time I look across the coast, I see Spanish vessels dropping off black men and women and children into the Dominican Republic, and I can't even do nothing, and I want to do something, but then that would cause conflict and commotion in the world political landscape, and then they're going to run my name in the media and say I'm causing trouble and causing war all over the island. But I can't really do nothing. My hands are tied, and I'm waiting on the European kings to give me the word if I could, get the green light. So Christophe having all these thoughts, you know what I'm saying? Let's get back into it. Your opinion and that of our mutual friends in England is that France is not at present in a position to undertake any expedition against Haiti. The reasons you give me seem plausible. Since the slave trade has been abolished, France would have nothing to gain by the conquest of this island, and moreover, the expedition might well be unpopular in France. You come then to a very delicate matter, upon which I had until recently based my dearest hopes. If England had recognized the independence of Haiti, our tranquility thus assured, I should have been able to carry out my great plan for general improvement and development of agriculture. It is a plan which I cannot abandon, but I learned with distress, for the reasons which you explained, England could not, just now, recognize publicly the independence of Haiti without antagonizing France. Though what you have said brings me a certain degree of security, still it is all based on supposition. I can conceive of nothing which would reassure me completely except the support of England, and that you demonstrate to me that she can do nothing openly in our favor at this moment. With respect to France too, nothing is positive. The ultra-conservatives may at any moment triumph over the constitutional party. And should that happen, the ex-colonists would certainly again stir up the resentment of the French government against Haiti. We therefore have at present no real guarantee in which we can have confidence. Nevertheless, you advise me, my worthy friend, to disband a portion of my troops in order to increase the number of those engaged in agriculture and to organize a militia according to the English model. This measure has an unusual appeal for me. Even before the reception of your letter, I had already sent a number of soldiers, older men, and the physically unfit into agriculture. But I cannot yet risk dismissing a large part of my army without being able to give positive assurance to the nation that it will not be troubled by the French. Even so, I propose to bring up this great and salutary measure for discussion in my council. Public education is making steady progress. The Royal Chamber is zealously fulfilling its functions. Regulations for the organization and control of the national schools and academies have been drawn up, and now we are considering the means of establishing new schools and making education available to all Haitians. In the publications which I am sending to you, you will learn of the present situation of the institutions of learning. Mr. Simmons, the young man whom you recommended to me, has been made master of the schools in Gonaive. You asked me, my friend, if any communication exists between myself and General Jean-Pierre Boyer. The situation is this. Upon receiving word of Pétion's death, I made overtures to Boyer in an attempt to bring about a reconciliation. I pointed out to him that justice, reason, and the best interests of the Haitian people all demanded our union and the formation of a single government. My efforts were unavailing because ambition and the baser passions speak more loudly in corrupt breasts than the desire for the well-being of the nation. At least I have the consolation of having done once more all that was in my power to reunite my country. You must have seen in the proclamation dated from St. Mark the offers which I made to Boyer, but I must tell you, my friend, that in Port-au-Prince there exists a group of troublemakers from all parts of the world who always make every effort to mislead public opinion. These men take the greatest pains to intercept any writings which might inform the people concerning their own best interests. We have heard that the French were trying to come to terms with Boyer, and that there can be no doubt that they're still trying to carry on intrigues with him as they did with Pétion. I myself believe, as you do, that Boyer might well lead astray the unfortunate Haitians on his part of the island. He is the pupil and emulator of Pétion and is following in the latter's footsteps. If you could add to the fact that the presence of a great number of Frenchmen of both colors have taken refuge in Port-au-Prince, you may be able to judge the influence of the French party and to understand how constantly I must be on my guard against what could happen there. I beg of you, on your part, you will pass on to me any information which reaches your ear. I promise you that I shall take no step which might frighten Boyer and to induce him to throw himself into the arms of the French, our eternal enemies. If he does anything of the sort, it will be on his own accord, since he is well informed of my intentions toward him. How can I express to you, my friend, the satisfaction I felt Upon reading in the public papers that you had gone to the Congress in France, I was immediately sure that it was only your never-ending zeal in the defense of our cause which called you to that meeting of the sovereigns of Europe. It was with the greatest emotion and most lively interest that I read of the gracious way in which the noble and magnanimous Emperor of Russia had received you. My pleasure was extreme to note his conduct, reflecting an attitude which honors both that illustrious king and you, my worthy friend. The conversations you had with Emperor Alexander, the letter of mine, which you showed him, and which his Imperial Majesty communicated to their Majesties, the Emperor of Austria and the King of Prussia, all were extremely flattering to me and made me understand the intensity of your concern for all that concerns Haiti. The information you received from Lord Wellington and Lord Castlereagh confirmed my already high opinion of these noble gentlemen. We surely have cause for great hope when we see the cause of the Africans defended and furthered by the most illustrious men of Europe. In accordance with the suggestion made in your last letter and with what I have read of the generous character of Emperor Alexander, I have decided to write a letter to His Majesty, Emperor of all the Russians. I am sending to you this dispatch unsealed. Please read it, my friend, and if you judge that it may be sent to him, I beg of you to forward it to his destination. I cannot end this letter without expressing again to you, my true and worthy friend, all the thankfulness I feel, not only for what you have done for the general cause, but for the aid you have given us in particular. The frankness, wisdom, and sound advice that I find in your letters are most precious to me. Please continue your support, and our gratitude shall be limitless. Henri. Yeah, all right, we're going to end part, 6, 7? I don't even remember. We're going to end it right here. In the next letter, starting tomorrow or whenever we upload the next part, we're going to start directly in the King Henri to Emperor Alexander of Russia. The king of the Haitians to the king of the Russians. You dig? Listen, epic documents, epic stuff that we should have learned in history class. But, we never going to show the black man in a powerful and dignified and honorable light. You know what I mean? We're going to act like it never happened. It is what it is, man. It is what it is. But that's why I took it upon myself to teach this information, because they're going to lie on Christophe. Everything you see here would not even be found on a basic Google search. You got to go digging, buying books that are expensive, talking to elders, talking to people, that can actually trace their bloodline to the kingdom of Haiti. You got to do a lot of research to find what went down back in them days, man, because the European media is not going to acknowledge it. When he was alive, they didn't acknowledge it. So, of course, now he's dead. They're not going to acknowledge it, but we are going to acknowledge it, and that's all that matters. It's your boy Dessalines back in the building, yes, indeed, and I'm gone. Peace.
Reincarnated, I'm back in original fashion. I left on a horse and came back in that ass, and I left with abundance and came back to famine. We used to be pyramids, now we be rapping. Look how the mighty have fallen. Used to be running, now we be walking. When you be cooning, that's when they applauded. Selling your soul, your sons and your daughter. Gotta come up in this shit, they stuck in the mix. Really, my heart it be breaking. That's why I'm stacking that paper and handle my business. Pass it down in generation. Talking about money and power and building a nation. That's a deadly combination. Never be watching the TV, they pushing agendas, falsifying information. Know they got malice intentions. Step in the room and I'm feeling the tension. Enemy watching, he blocking my vision. Came for the check cause I need my redemption. Building my kingdom, I need it protected. Ready for war like a young Money Congo. Never decided the team is the motto. Up in the crib and I'm whipping up waffles. Up in the crib and I'm smoking gelato. I'm chilling, I'm taking my pain and make it ambition. I'm blessed by the gods, but I ain't religious. I came for the power, they came for the bitch. They making no hourly wage, I got business. This shit is an art and they could never be taught. Selling my soul, I can never be bought. Play with my money, I see you ain't caught. Run to the check and I do it for sport. Babylon falling, I go to the source. Packing my luggage and go overseas. Shorty be with me and she so elite. Shorty be chocolate, I'm calling her Hershey. Secret intelligence probably gon' murk me. Don't fuck with brands cause nigga I'm Haitian. Say the wrong shit and you're smacking their face.